Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Zulu's Painting Show, the show where I do my best to help you, the delightful customers at Zulu's Board Game Cafe, learn how to be better painters or paint for the very first time. Whatever reason you're here, we're going to do some painting, which I'm excited for, and you should be too. So for this particular episode, what we're going to go ahead and do is just dive right into starting with one of the starter paint kits and using those paints and only those paints to paint up one of our models. Now, to begin with this, and as you may have seen on the post, we're going to be starting with this delightful orc on a dire wolf, and our starting paint kit specifically will be the Army Painter what is this called? The Wargamers Hobby Starter Paint Set. So first thing I'm going to do is be going over what's in here, what comes all in the model, and then kind of to begin, what brushes I'll be using, what things that you need, and versus what things are just nice to have. Alright, so yeah, let's go ahead and switch the camera and dive right into it. Alright, I gotta add some extra light. Oh, look at that brightness. That's nice. So, to begin, our model, going to be hard to paint him sort of in the box here. So let's go ahead and bust that open. Now what's difficult is my left hand is underneath my tripod, so it must remain basically stationary. Oh, I bet this is great for audio listeners. Why anyone would just listen to the audio of this, I am not sure. So, model and base has successfully been extracted. So, the first thing we need to do, let's look at this guy a little bit. So, this is the guy that we're going to be painting over. I got to make sure that my focus is right. How does it look focus-wise? Too much light from the side. All right. So this is our model we'll be working on. He is an orc on a dire wolf, which offers a variety of fun things. Now he's got this big old banner, which I'm very excited about. It's a large blank canvas that we might play a little around with a little bit. We've got fur, we've got leather, we've got the metal of his blade, as well as some armor pieces. I think I'm going to probably make these armor plates metal as well, so that we can really play around with some metallics, because those are a lot of fun. So this is our model we'll be painting, but in order to get started, we need to get him on his base. The model comes with this here nice little 2-inch base, because for our D&D players, he is a large creature, which means he has a 2-inch base. Is this light too bright? I don't know. Let's see if I can. Oh, we're playing around with lighting as we're doing it. Maybe not the best plan. That's okay. Oh. It's precariously sad, but that's okay. So, first thing we're going to go ahead and do is grab yourself some super glue and slap it on the base of your model. Now, to begin with our need versus nice to have, you do need glue. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and pull that back already, because he has a nice little base to sit on already. He doesn't need to be on this sort of black plastic base. So you could play him without that. He's going to be sitting on a stand a little bit later, so having the base will make it a lot easier for us to paint him later. But again, it's not something you need to do. It's just something that's kind of nice to do. Alright, so we've got our model. He is going to be the subject of our painting. Now we can't paint a model without paint, so let's go ahead and dive into our paint set. Ooh. Comes a little thank you. That's exciting. I'm going to go ahead and move him off a little bit to the side. Don't worry, we will return to these guys someday, but for now, we're working on... We've got specific plans, so we're going to go ahead and start on that. My goodness, this box... So I haven't actually opened this box before, so this is very exciting to kind of see what all we have. So, first things first, the thing that they slap on the top, which I very much like, is your brush. You've got this here starter brush with its little cap on here. Got that guy, your vehicle to putting paint onto a model. Very nice. So we're going to go ahead and put that off to the side for now. We'll come back to that later. There's a lot of stuff in this box. We'll come back to that later too. Alright, so let's go ahead and start over here. We've got ourselves our white paint. Matte white, rather, sorry. Demonic yellow. We've got pure red. We've got ultramarine blue. For those of you who play Warhammer 40k, ultramarine is a fun one. This one might actually be ultramarine, whereas the ultramarines from Warhammer 40k aren't. Either way. We're then going to go into green skin. Orcs are often known as greenskins. As luck would have it, we actually have an orc that we'll be painting, so we have a skin right there. But if you were not necessarily doing, your orc-looking things, we do have a barbarian flesh. Doesn't necessarily need to go onto barbarians, but hey, it's nice. We've got our leather brown. This guy has lots of leather, so that's nice. We've got a matte black, and then we start getting into the more interesting ones. So this is our plate mail metal, and then finally we've got a wash. If you've seen the first episode, you know that the word wash and I are we've got an interesting relationship. Some paint companies still call them washes. Some of them call them shades. Really depends on who you're dealing with. For Army Painter, they will do their paints in light and strong and medium tones. So we've got here our strong tone. So yeah, that is our sort of starting place. Now, additionally, in this box, it's got a bunch of other stuff, which I have no idea about. Oh yeah, got some tutorial information, which is nice to have. The hobby products you can find. It's got the full range of paints, which is actually nice to sort of be aware of. I'm going to go slide that here. Sort of a reminder of what paints we have available to us. And then it actually comes with, oh, sorry about the camera bump there. It actually comes with this nice little sort of painting tutorial book. Also, I do really enjoy you spray it with the one color, slap a couple colors on it, you dip it, and then you're done. Which Matt is a huge fan of the dip process. And I think eventually we will go over dipping, because I think it's definitely a good thing to get. I do a lot of my furniture and things, not like furniture that I'll sit on, but like miniature furniture. So, for this particular paint job, and you might have noticed them over here, I also have some brushes. Oh, I'm peeking? No, I'm not peeking. So, you can definitely just use the starter brush, but we've got a little bit of a bigger model that we're doing here. So I figured it'd be kind of nice to do something, have some different brushes. Also, our strong tone is going to be a little easier to get on with a bigger brush as well. So what I started with is we've got this here monster brush. I'm going to take off its cap. It's got a little bit of a bigger set of bristles, but it's just a good quality brush. This will be using for doing a lot of our base paints, as well as applying our washes. So that's that guy. I'm going to set him off to the side. Get him out of the way so he's not bumping into my things. The next brush, kind of more of a technical brush, but still a nice one to have nonetheless, is your dry brush. Now again, when it comes to the nice to have versus the need to have, you do not need a dry brush or a large brush. You can get away with just that starter brush, but it makes life a lot easier if you have the right brush for the right job. So a dry brush is going to be easiest to tell by the sort of flatter bristles that it has on the top. And when we get to dry brushing, we'll kind of talk a little bit more about why the brush is the way it is. But suffice it to say, having a dry brush makes your life a lot easier, but it's not necessarily something that you need. Oh my goodness, I am very sorry. Next, what we're going to go ahead and dive into is me turning my mic down a little bit, because I am apparently a very loud talker. The next brush we have is our regiment brush. Now, if you'll notice, this guy already has his cap off. That's because we had a little trouble with the cap. It pushed the little bristles down, but we've been working a little bit to try and get it back down to kind of a more respectable look. And as you can see, between our regiment brush and our starter brush, they have kind of similar bristle sizes, but the regiment brush is going to be a little bit bigger. So they'll be for kind of your bigger paint applications, whereas your starter brush is going to be more a little bit more detailed. However, speaking of detail, oh no, I don't have the right places to hide these brushes. The final brush I went ahead and grabbed is what's called a character brush. Can you read that? Is that too tiny? I'm gonna let the thing catch up to me real quick. Put this here. Oh, that's real hard to see. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, I wonder if I turn this down, does it make it a little easier to read? If I turn this off, does it make it easier to read? That might just be the white is a hard color to deal with. All right, sorry about that. We're learning as we go. But this is our character brush, and this is our finest point. And we'll get into points a little bit and all that good stuff here in just a moment. But first, I'm going to go and set this one here because I don't have a better place for it. Let's go over a couple of the other things that you see sort of around my paint area, and some of the things that you will need to have as you work. So what we have here is our water cup. You definitely don't need it to be a Citadel branded water cup. I just happen to have one. You can use any cup, but remember, you are going to be washing your paint out in this, so make sure it's one that your significant other or parents won't get mad about you filling with paint. The other thing that you're going to need is some sort of absorbent material. I generally just use paper towels. You can use whatever sort of cleaning stuff you need. You could use napkins, that sort of thing. And then finally, this guy here is our palette. Now, I normally use a wet palette, but for this one, we're going to go ahead and use this guy. It's just a dry palette, or just colloquially called just a palette. We're going to dive into wet palettes later, but this is meant to be a sort of introductory painting video, so I don't feel like we need to really dive into the technicals of a wet palette. But suffice it to say, it is nice. The palette is something that you should be using, and we'll get into why as we start our painting process. But I think we first need to talk a little bit about what we want to do for paints. So, I think first things first. We got our wolf here. We've got a couple different options. We've got a couple different colors in front of us, and I think we're gonna do this guy's face as the green. We're going to go ahead and do his hands as well, green. You could do them as a leather color, showing that he is wearing gloves, but I think having that little pop of green will make it a little bit more interesting. Now he's also, so we're going to do metallic for the blade and his bracers here. Yeah, vent bracers, I always forget. His pauldrons, we're going to go ahead and do those metallic as well. He's got a lot of leather armor and stuff happening, so we're going to do that. Our wolf, let's see. For the wolf, we're going to go ahead and do him brown. The banner we'll probably do red because it'll be kind of fun to do a very bright red. And then we might play around with making like his pants or his tunic a different color. But let's go ahead and let's dive right into it. So we know our wolf is going to be brown. Now, speaking of need versus nice to have, one of the things I have is this little handle. It just squeezes the base so that I have a little something bigger to hold on to than the plastic of the base of the model itself. You definitely don't need one of these. This is absolutely sort of a painting luxury. If something like a handle is something that you would like, though, because the idea of trying to hold on to the model's base for the entire time you're painting it sounds painful, which it can get a little crampy. The other thing you can do that's very simple is to just take some sticky tack, which I think I had some sticky tack around here. I don't, but that's okay. Take some sticky tack, put it on the base of the model, put that on maybe, say, one of your other paint pots. You just turn one of these guys upside down, put the sticky tack on there, and bang, you got yourself a nice little handle to hold on to. I got this here fancy one, but you definitely don't need one. So, to get started, our very first paint. Now, remember, always shake your paints. These are paints are made up of a variety of different things. You've got your acrylics, you've got water, you've got the pigment itself. All of those things are all sort of mixed together, and the longer they sit, the more likely it is that those things are going to separate. So you can see the delightful bit of me shaking in the background. You can hear it in the voice. So we've shaken our paints successfully, and we've got this here palette. So let's go ahead and just slop some of that paint onto the palette. There it is. Mine has some depressions to make it a little easier to use. All right, so we've got a little dollop of a brown paint. Now you might be thinking to yourself, now Rob, how are we going to possibly cover our entire wolf with just that amount of paint? To which I say, we're not gonna. We're going to use most of it, probably all of it, and then we'll add more as we need. But you know what? You don't want to put too much paint out and then not, and then have extra paint go to waste. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the first things to remember when painting is that you do need to thin your paints. You might be wondering, why, Rob, would I need to thin my paints if they're already in the pot? Why wouldn't I just, from the pot to the model? And if that's the case, why do I need the palette? Well, that's because different situations call for different thicknesses of paint, different consistencies. So you can really play around with how thick your paint is now. So on the palette here, you can kind of see how it works, how it does things. Actually, the army painters are nice and thin. That's not bad. So we won't need to put a lot of water in this guy. But even now, as I'm really starting to gloop it on, you can see it's very thick, it's very mushy. I'm starting to kind of lose some of the detail there. You can really see the lines of the paintbrush. So what you do is just touch your water, get a little water on your brush, and then just start kind of mixing it into your paint to thin it out. Now, you can over thin your paints. So unfortunately, this is one of those things where you do sort of kind of got to get a feel for it. And this is where your palette really comes into play. Because you've got this nice white surface, and as you're putting your paint on, you can kind of see what the paint is doing. So don't think of your palette just as a place where you put water into your paint, or just a place where your paint sits before it lands on your model. Think of it kind of as your testing ground. This is where you go to see what paint does, how it reacts, how much paint you have on your brush, all of that good stuff. Now, for this first step, we're just doing a base coat, so that's going to be a pretty quick and easy process. We don't need to be too terribly careful with this first bit, because eventually all of this model is going to be covered in color. Another detail that I feel that I must mention before we dive in, and I know that we've... Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just start putting some... I'm going to go ahead and just start putting some brown on, and we can kind of talk about what's going on as we do it. So, oh yeah, it's always nice the first bit of paint on the model. It's all fresh and clean. So if most models don't start their life out being white like this. One of the nice things about this particular brand of model, and I've already forgotten the brand of it. Give me a sec. Oh, here it is. Let's see. So these are the deep cuts. That's actually the deep cuts line. Like I said, there's a link in the description for this model. But these guys come pre-primed. Now, primer is a very important thing that I feel like is much like the wet palette, something that's very easy to think to yourself, well, I don't need this, and you do. Primer is a special type of paint that's designed to adhere to plastics and give your acrylics a nice surface to hold on to. Because acrylics, for the most part, don't want to, they can't just grip onto things in the same way that a primer can. A primer is a specifically designed paint for that particular thing. So if you don't get a model that is already primed, you'll want to prime the model, and we'll talk a little bit later about priming specifically. But for now, we're just diving into the painting process. So long so there. So you get into the zen of putting the paint onto the model. It feels nice. So I mentioned before on these two guys that I used a metallic primer for them. You can get primers with pigments on them, and this is nice because you can, if you know kind of your base color for your model, then you can get it on there quick and with relative ease. For this guy, however, I wanted to make this as easy as possible, so I picked a model that was already primed. And white is a very sort of easy to use primer because it's not going to be fighting the colors. If this model was black, some of the color of the primer shows through your paints. If you're doing it properly thin, you'll get a little bit of the undercolor, and that's actually what you want. And we'll be playing around with that a little bit as we dive deeper into it. But you can change the tone and color of a paint just by changing what's underneath it. Look at the nose. I like a good model with good detail. So some of you have probably noticed that I have not bothered to be clean at all. This saddle has brown on it, this boot has brown on it, and it's not because I'm going to use just this brown on those. We're going to have to probably play around a little bit with doing some mixing to get a new brown because we've got leather next to the brown of the wolf. But I figured the wolf is going to be a hard one, so I don't want to worry about mixing paints for the wolf. We want to just get it on there. Now, the reason that I'm okay with getting a little bit of a mess on the other parts is because eventually everything's going to get paint on it. And if you're doing it right, which is to say thin layers of paint, then you can have 2 or 3 layers on a surface and it's not going to remove any of the detail. Now, that's again why we talk about thinning our paints. It is crucially important that you make sure that the paint gets thinned. And if you'll notice, as I'm working this, I'm not pulling from the kind of main area where the paint is. I've got this sort of upraised area here that I'm pulling my paint from. And as I'm trying to reloading my brush with paint, I'm sort of pulling it from there into this kind of wetter spot. I'm moving it around to see what the colors are looking like, to see how sort of thick it is as we're going back to it. So remember, your palette is really your testing grounds. You don't want to be testing out how your paint's doing things, how your paint's reacting, just on the model itself. Your model is where your finished product is going. Okay, gotta get that chin. Yeah, and this first step is one of the longer ones, but you know. You got to start somewhere. There was some talk of doing edits of these videos, and I would love to do that, where we sort of jump between the steps of me sort of, you know. So it would show me starting this and talk a little bit about base coating, and then dive into me done with the brown and moving on to another color. But since you're watching it live, you get to see the whole process in action, which is a double-edged sword to be sure. So since we have this time, as I am browning this here model's parts, also his chest is a real pain to get to. I would love to hear any thoughts that you guys have. While you guys frantically type your burning questions in the chat, I will go ahead and say the reason that we have not returned to our lovely little knights that are sitting over there, or armored fighters, whatever, those guys, is because those were sort of a test model. It was kind of seeing if how the setup was, kind of seeing what we wanted to do with the format. And Matt and I have been talking a lot about kind of what the future of this painting show is and what it'll look like. So if this is something that you guys would like to see more regularly, which is to say to see painting tutorials on our social medias, on our Twitch and YouTube and Facebook, because yes, we are in all three places, then share this video with some of your friends. Be like, hey, look at this nerd as he paints some models, and if there are specific things that you would like to see me paint, if there are questions of techniques that you would like to do, I would love to see those, or hear those rather. And if you have paintings that you've done, I would also like to see those. I think it's fun to have a community, because it's a little harder to get together and paint, but it's also a lot of fun to kind of show off what you've done. So I wanna see what you got. Also, I realize that I am very close to my mic right now. I need to not talk as though I'm trying to shout to you, but rather, we're just hanging out, you and me. We're just painting some models together. So what is more soothing than slapping some paint on a model, especially now. We're doing our base paint, so we don't care about getting things messy. We're just slapping it on there. Just gotta get some color. Look, that wolf just a few short minutes ago, he was just white, and you couldn't see any of his details, especially because the camera is very bright when it's just white. I'm working on it. This is a learning process. And again, remember, if it's white right now, that means it's going to get paint on it. It's the objective is not to have any of your models stay its initial primer color. The primer color is to just sort of help your undercoat, to help your color as you go forward. I as a younger painter, thought to myself, ooh, I'm going to have because I was playing Imperial Guard at the time, which is a Warhammer 40k army. I think they're Adeptus, what are they now? Astra Militarum. But with those guys, there's a whole bunch of them. I had 50, 60 of these guys that I needed to paint. So I thought, well, I'll just hit them with black primer, and then that will be the color of their armor, which is fine for the most part. I'm going to take this guy off his base to get underneath him. As you can see, his undercarriage is very white. So we gotta really get in there. And actually, this brings up an excellent point. So you're going to be painting models for different reasons. Maybe it's because you enjoy the act of painting. Maybe it's because you need to get that model on the table for your game tonight, next week, at some point. Now, depending on why you're painting it will determine sort of how much time and effort you'll need to put into the different steps. Normally, a model will not be seen from this distance. This is so much closer than most people will see models. Most models will be seen... Oh, there's some really deep in there parts. Most models will be seen at what I like to call a tabletop distance, which is, between 2 to 3 feet away. And as you're painting, you're going to be spending a lot of your time very close to the model, just very, right in the details. And the thing to remember is most other people will not see it that closely. So, it's really important to take a moment, especially when you've been painting for a long time, and just, set your model down on the table and just sort of back away from it a little bit. See it from a different angle, because one of the things that you'll notice, which is very, very interesting, is details that you have painstakingly worked on for a good long time won't be sort of visible or apparent once you get at that sort of tabletop distance. And that's one of the things that's very interesting about model painting versus a kind of other forms of painting, is so much of what you're doing is creating that sort of tabletop illusion. You don't, a well-modeled, a well sort of made model is going to have bumps and ridges and grooves and things in them. And those things will naturally catch light and create shadow as it just exists in the world. That's how shadow works. However, because of the extremely small scale of the model, sometimes those shadows and things won't be as sort of prominent as if it was a full-sized creature. So a lot of what you're trying to do is create this illusion that what you're looking at is full-sized. So ultimately, you're not painting to make things exactly right. You're painting them to create the illusion that they're exactly right, which is a kind of an interesting thing. I guess all of that is to try and say you don't necessarily need to have things be perfect, provided they look like they're perfect. And you can do that, and I know that's a strange distinction, but it's sort of the illusion of painting. That's a lot of what painting is. I like to say it's paint by models are paint by number, and a little bit of illusionary witchcraft. Well, illusionary witchcraft thing I don't often say, but I believe it. The paint by numbers I absolutely say. As I was kind of talking before, there's different colors for the model. So the wolf is brown. That's pretty simple. That means that anything that is wolf needs to be painted brown. His hands here and his blade are going to be metal, which means we're going to paint them metal colored. A lot of the kind of the detail of shading and contrast and all that good stuff will be created by different techniques we use as we get deeper into the process. I'm actually really looking forward to playing around with this banner. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, I'm going to put him back on the big old base because it's easier to hold on to. All right, so if you've noticed, I've been kind of going over some of the same spots a couple times as I've been going. That's because I'm using thinned paint. It will show, to an extent, the colors underneath. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that I have 100% coverage on the fur, and that it's dark enough for what I want. The leg here, I don't know if I can get a good angle on the leg for you. The leg here is a great kind of example because there's a little bit of lightness to it. It's not necessarily as dark as I want, and we're of course going to be washing this whole thing, not with soap, but with the wash paint. But it's good to make sure that you have your 100% coverage so that when you do get to the wash stage, you're not trying to have the wash do all of the work. It has that good base brown. Also, part of the reason that you want those thin paints is because if you were to just slop on some big, thick, goopy paint, you would lose the detail. It kind of fills in, much in the same way actually that your wash will run into the thin edges, and will fill in those low spots for you. Regular paint will do that too. The problem is because of the way because of the fact that it's paint, it will not only fill in the low edges, but it will sort of flatten on the top. And all the details of this model is really, you want to keep those. You want to keep a hold of those. All right, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I'm also starting to run low on brown. Yeah, we've got good coverage here. There's no thick spots. The wolf is looking delightfully brown. All right, I'm gonna let that dry for a moment. While I do, let's talk about cleaning brushes. So, this particular cup happens to have some ridges on the bottom of it. You don't need to have ridges. You just need to make sure that you give it a thorough sort of shaking. Make sure you can get as much of that pigment out as possible, because you wanna make sure that your paint brushes stay clean, because that's how you do good painting. Good brushes means good painting, with a lot of extra skill in between. So one of the things that I was shown by some different painters, and just things I've picked up over the years. Oh, I'm just knocking paints. Oh, they've all gone over. It's like a comedy of errors. No. Come on, little guys. Stand back up. So this is why you come here. It's not here for the painting. It's the here watching me fumble with paints. Also, I really need to stop talking like I'm shouting across a room. I've done painting classes in larger groups, and so I'm very much used to that sort of, I'm addressing a whole room's worth of people. So, you're right here. You're right here. I don't need to yell at you. Okay, so, you get your brush. It's got some water on it. You get your hand. You take, and you sort of mush the brush onto your hand. You can get the paint out of that kind of deeper area in your brush. You don't want any paint getting left in your brush. Now, I don't know if this reads very well on the on our camera, but I do spin the brush as I am drying it or washing it or that sort of thing. That's because I'm attempting to promote it having a nice sharp tip. Go and throw this on here. So again, you dry off your brush. You can just give it a quick spin. The other thing, as I mentioned before, is you can take your hand here, put it into that little crease, and then spin it as you pull out of your hand crease, and it will sort of sharpen the tip of your brush. Yeah, so that is that. Feeling pretty good about this, about our base coat here. I'm going to probably end up doing a little bit more brown on top of it as we go, but I figure for now that'll probably be a good place to start. And then we're going to hit it with our strong tone wash, and go from there. Any questions so far on what's happening, what's doing? Alrighty, well then let's keep chugging right along. And I think it looks like, timing-wise, we'll probably get just about enough time to get... Oh, goodness. We'll probably get enough time to get the wolf started, and then we can start into the rider a little bit later. We might play around with some mixing of paints. We might just focus on the wolf today. We'll see what time provides. All right. So next, we're going to go to our strong tone wash. And this is actually called a wash. Give it a good shake. As always, don't forget to shake your paints. Shaking can sometimes be a sort of loud thing, so I spared you half of the noise anyway. Now, because this bottle is in a dropper, we can't simply take the wash straight from the brush onto our model. So we're going to go ahead and slap it onto our palette. This is kind of why a palette with a depression is so helpful, because that way your paint doesn't go wandering off without you. That being said, again, that is a nice versus a need. A palette is a need. A palette with depressions is just nice to have. Now, I didn't mention this at the time, and I should have, and I apologize for not. Your paint kit came with a nice little plastic jobber here. Now, if you notice, there are depressions in this nice little plastic jobber, as well as large flat surfaces, which are perfect for using as a palette. Now, it is clear, so you'll see all the colors on the other side of it, but that can actually be kind of helpful. If you put a little of your paint on there, and you can sort of put it over different other colors to see what it'll look like with that undertone. And it also has depressions, so you can put your wash in there, and it won't just flow out. If you wanted to use this as your palette, the other option that you could do is you could hit it with a primer on one side, flip it over so you have the nice plastic on the other, so you can clean this surface, make sure that you're not getting anything on it, but you have that white underneath to kind of show you what your colors will look like. So this is a perfect example of a nice versus a need. You need a palette, and it's nice to have one that has dimples and things, but you don't need to get the fancy, expensive one. I think actually these palettes are like $1. regardless, wet palettes are, I think, a great example of that nice versus need thing. But a palette is essential. I'm going to set this back aside. All right, so I have specifically wash brushes that I use on occasion, but one of the things I'm trying to do is limit the number of things that you need to purchase to be able to dive into your first model painting. So we're going to go right back to that monster brush that we were using just a moment ago. It's big, it's thick, it can hold a lot of paint in it, and we're going to use that as our wash brush today. So let's go ahead and grab up, grab a little bit of that wash, and then just start putting it on. And just like the knights the other day, immediately you can start seeing the detail of that fur. It also changes the color of it. It adds a nice sort of richness to it. You're making it look a little bit more fun. I am always a big fan of playing around with washes. And actually, one of the things I'm very excited about with painting the rest of this model is kind of diving into kind of mixing the different paints and resources. We only have one wash in this paint set, but with a little added pigment, you can really change up how this wash is going to look and feel. So a little later on, we're going to be playing around with, like I said, I'm thinking I kind of want to do a nice big red banner, or I might make it a blue banner and give him red clothes. But we'll be playing around with that. I was also looking as I was painting. I was noticing that he has these sort of inner ear areas, and he's got his teeth here. I think playing around with getting a nice sort of pinkish. So we'll take some of our red and we'll mix it in with our wash, and then with that we can sort of redden up some of those areas, which I'm very excited for. But for right now, we're getting that complete coverage. We want to just really make sure that the whole model gets covered in our wash to really bring out the details of that fur. And again, we want to make sure that it's not pooling anywhere. While it is relatively thin and does definitely let the color through, if it does pool into place, it will make sort of dark spots there. Now, to move the paint around, you simply just poke it with your brush. The more full your brush is, the less you'll be able to pick up with it. But essentially your brush has a sort of a capacity, and that's largely determined by the number of hairs it has in it. So obviously, if it's filled with other paint, it can't take any more, and if it's has very little in it, it will start picking up the paint from the model. Now, there are ways to mitigate this. For instance, if I were to just poke the leg, I get a little less. Whereas if I scrape the leg with the side of the brush, I get significantly more. That's because the ink is between the bristles, and when you touch the front of it, using capillary action, it pulls it in between the bristles. Whereas if you push it along the sides, you're disrupting that capillary action, and it forces the paint sort of out of the brush because it can't sort of be held with surface tension between the bristles. So understanding why your brush is doing what it's doing can help you sort of know how to better utilize it. And you can sort of know that intuitively. I know plenty of painters that just know that the side of the brush will get a good chunk of the paint off, whereas the front can sort of soak the paint up. Yeah, as I'm doing this, I'm definitely realizing that a little bit of an edit would probably be beneficial to really get you all the information very quickly. Oh, another thing, while washing your brushes, do not leave them in your paint pot because you are crushing the tips. And you'll discover as we start getting to more finer detail things that having a fine point to your brush is very important. So always make sure to take them out of the water because otherwise you will find yourself with sad, droopy tips. Also, I was kind of impressed. I had almost exactly enough brown paint as I needed to be able to do the wolf. Whereas with my wash here, I've had to get a little extra already. But that's okay, because it's better to get extra than to have your paint go dry on you on your palette. Other details that I was noticing on this wolf, and especially now that I have some of the wash on it, is get some of the tip of his chin. Is you got the teeth that we're going to want to emphasize there, with a little bit of gums around there. We might play around with that. We might leave it there. His eyes are definitely going to be something we want to play around with, and we might even play around with some sort of light effects on that, but maybe not. Who knows? And then his little nose. We're going to need to darken that up. One of the other reasons that I'm kind of okay as I'm going through this sort of basing process, the reason I'm okay with getting it on the other things is because it is so much easier to sort of clean up edges by sort of, you know, making the paints the right color for the parts that they're on. That's a lot easier than kind of dealing with kind of white outlines between parts. Because the last thing that you want is your model to look like it is several sort of separate pieces that have had color sort of slapped on them. For instance, if I were to paint just up to the edge of the saddle and paint just up to on the saddle just up to the edge of the fur, and I left a little bit of a gap, there'd be a white line between the two, which is a very jarring and very noticeable sort of thing. So one of the ways that you can mitigate that is by not using a white primer. If you're using a darker primer, then most of the time when two surfaces come up to each other, like the saddle and the fur, that's usually where you'll have some shadows. So if your primer is a darker color, then it just looks like there's a dark shadow there, whereas a white primer is going to be very obvious that there's sort of a seam. So that's just something to keep in mind of when you're picking your primer, when you're picking your paints, when you're doing your base coat, is how are those things going to interact with each other? Are we going to have very obvious sort of seams between things? Now, there is a method by which you dip your whole model in a vat of wash. And that is a quick and easy way to make sure you get 100% coverage. Because, well, the whole thing has been dipped. Now, ironically, you will have a sort of Achilles heel sort of thing, which is to say when Achilles was dipped in the river Styx, he was held by his heel. Thus, that is the only part of him that was weak. So, yeah. Don't give your guys Achilles heels by forgetting to paint them. The other thing to remember is just because we've done paint on a part doesn't mean that that's how it has to stay. For instance, if I'm going back through and I'm looking at my wolf and I notice like his underbelly there is severely lacking in paint, just because I've moved on to something else doesn't mean I can't go back and be like, oh well, gotta get the tummy. His undercarriage is very much a pain in the butt to get to though. The other thing, though, keep in mind, when he's sitting here like this on the table, you will not see his underside. So again, we're coming back to that whole idea of, you know, keep in mind what you'll be seeing, where you'll be seeing it, how you'll be seeing it, and make sure that it's sort of appropriate. Me spending 2 hours on this wolf's belly to make sure that it is exactly right and detailed doesn't really make sense. That being said, if you're wanting to make beautiful models and the fun of painting is what you're here for, then paint this guy's belly. Make it gorgeous. So that way when someone else is looking at your models, you can be like, hey, look at his tummy. See how beautiful that tummy is? A lot of people wouldn't have gone that far, but I did. And hey, that's what we appreciate about you. You know? Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. I bet you didn't know you were coming here for a pep talk. But yeah, we got everything. Oh, man. Well, it looks like so far today we have managed to do our base coat and our wash on this here wolf. We've got a great start. We've got a lot of detail in there. Let's see. I might try to do some painting on our rider here just to get some of the base coat done. Just because you understand the principles of base coating. and then we might come back and do some specific details and go through that. I might also just record myself doing it just so that I can have it for later. Oh, I didn't even notice. This guy's got little knee pads with like skulls on them. Those are definitely getting turned metal. But yeah, I thought that was a very delightful start. I hope you did too. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. If this is something that you would like to see more of, please share this video. Tell your friends, like, hey, watch this guy paint his models. If you have specific questions about things you'd like to see, and actually I just realized I can turn on my face so you guys can actually see me as I talk. Ooh. Give me a moment. There we go, transition. Hey, welcome back. So if there's specific things that you would like to see, if there's specific painting styles that you would like to know more about, please let me know. We are in the sort of fledgling stages of this. We got to figure out how we can make this something that is valuable to you as the customer, and is sort of interesting, of course, for me as the painter. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy painting. I really enjoy making nice things, and I hope that for those of you who were, thought to yourself, hey, I'd love to start painting, but I don't know where to start, I really hope this is a good way to kind of get you into painting. As we go through this, I'm only gonna be using the paints from this starter set. We did add a couple extra brushes to it, but that's because you sort of need some extra brushes to begin with, but they're relatively cheap for getting started. Am I forgetting anything? Probably not. I think what I'm forgetting is a good way to sign off. I still haven't figured that out exactly. If you are new to Zulu's content, we actually have a handful of different shows that we do on a fairly regular basis. On Tuesdays from 6:30 to 7:30 is our RPG stream. We mostly do Dungeons & Dragons, but we have done an episode on Cyberpunk Red, so if you had any questions about what Cyberpunk Red looks like, whether or not you play it, small spoiler, the book is beautifully well written. Like, the layout of... I've played more than a couple tabletop role-playing games, and I gotta tell you, this one, by far, one of the best written, or best formatted anyway. So yes, so on Tuesdays from 6:30 to 7:30, we're talking RPGs. On Fridays from 6 to 7, we try to end at like 6:37ish, but we go long a lot of times. We have the Zulu Shopping Network, where we talk about the things that have released recently, things that are coming out, things to keep an eye out for, just kind of general sort of the goings on. And yeah, we constantly have stuff happening. So if you'd like to see more painting, please share this. Let people know. Let Matt know that this is something that you value and I think is awesome. But until then, till the next episode, go ahead and stay safe out there, and I will see you next week. Bye. Now I gotta figure out how to end this.